I've been doing woodworking for a long time, and I have never found the need for a table saw sled. But I do know that this little guy right here doesn't do very well in a lot of different situations, and I got a project coming up where I think a table saw sled would work really well. So today, this old dog's gonna learn some new tricks. I'm gonna make myself a table saw sled. Hi, my name is Bob, and I love my two-car garage. All right, well, I gathered up some stuff to make this thing with. I have this piece of 1/2-inch plywood that I'm going to use for the base of the sled. I have a piece of cherry here that I'm going to cut some thin strips out of for my runners, and for the front and the back fence, I'm going to use this piece of poplar. I want my sled to be kind of long and narrow, which is going to handle most things. So I'm going to cut my piece of 1/2-inch plywood right here, 16 by 48 inches. Now my table saw does not go out to 48 inches, so I'm going to cut the 48 with my little battery powered hand saw. I love this little guy. The runners that go through these grooves need to be pretty precise. So the depth of this is a little over 3/8 of an inch, almost 7/16. So I'm going to cut my runner 3/8 of an inch thick, and then the width is going to be, well, to start with, I'm going to make it exactly the size of this groove right here, and then I'm going to come back and shave it a little bit so it fits in that slot perfectly. I spent some time getting these runners to fit in there just perfectly, so they drop in there like that. Not too loose, not too tight, just right. Put a little piece of wood underneath it, about a 1/16 of an inch thick. That's going to hold it a little high, so I'm going to put some glue on there and attach it to the sled. But I want to be careful not to get any glue on my pretty little table saw top here. Before I screw this sled to the little runners, I have 18 inches between the end of this board and where my blade is going to be, and I got 30 inches left over, so it's going to be a nice long sled on this side. I always draw lines where I'm going to put my screws. I don't trust myself to make a nice straight line, plus it just looks better if those screws are all lined up. I'm going to use these number 6 by 3/4 inch wood screws, and I'm going to drill a shank hole and a pilot hole. I don't want to just muscle that screw in there, because I don't want that wood to split or expand when I put in those screws. At this point, this sled should slide effortlessly through your runners here. You may have to scrape or sand just a little bit on the edges of those runners, but it should feel good. Mine feels great. Now, I kind of debated what I should use for my fence material. I have this 6/4 poplar, and I have this 1/2-inch plywood that I could laminate together. And I think I've come to the conclusion that I'm going to use the 6/4 poplar for the rear fence. It's nice and straight, and I need a real straight piece for the rear fence. And I'm going to use the 1/2-inch plywood on the back fence. I'm going to glue it up and laminate it together. These fences need to be good and strong, because this is what actually holds the whole sled together once the thing is done. So you don't want to skimp on the material on these fences. I'm going to make the highest point on my fence 5 1/4 inches. I'm going to cut that on the table saw. All right, now you can have some fun with the way you shape this fence. It's going to be 3 inches down here, then it's going to come up in the middle where the blade is, and you can do something fancy if you want to right here. You can just do a curve, you can do a straight line, but I'm going to use a French curve just to be different. So I'm going to cut this portion out on my table saw, and then I'm going to go over to my bandsaw, and I'm going to make this cut right here, and I'm going to come back with my oscillating spindle sander and smooth it all out and make it look nice. I've got both fences cut out and shaped, and I can go ahead and attach my front fence right now. This one isn't as critical as the rear fence. The rear fence is going to determine the exact squareness of the cuts. I'm attaching the front fence with some wood glue and some 2-inch wood screws. Be careful not to put any screws where you know the blade is going to cut through. Now this is one of those fun yet scary times. I got my front fence attached, and I'm going to make a cut right now with that fence attached through my sled. That's going to give me a reference point to precisely align my rear fence. I'm going to leave that little bit still attached. Now I want a little dust relief on the bottom edge of this rear fence. So I'm going to go old school here. I'm going to take my block plane and put a little 45-degree angle on the bottom edge. Isn't that really cool stuff? Now I'm going to put one screw right here on the bottom for a pivot point. Now at this point, this will pivot back and forth. And I can use my triangle here to line this up perfectly with the cut that I made. And that looks like it's perfect right there. So I'm going to clamp it in place and put a screw in it from the bottom. Now I did everything I could to make this square, but I'm not really sure until I test it. So I'm going to do the 5-cut method in order to make sure that this thing is square. Cut number 1. Cut number 2. Cut number 3. Cut number 4. Cut number 5. All right, now using the 5-cut squaring method, I determined that over this span right here, I am that much off. It is 0.009 thousandths of an inch. And you know what? I think I can live with that. I'm going to put the rest of the screws in. And let's do a little sanding, make it look pretty. Last thing I'm going to do just for ease of use here is I'm going to put a little paste wax on the bottom and especially on these runners so that when I push it to and fro, it'll be a nice, easy move. Here we have it, nice little sliding cutoff sled for my table saw. It's gonna work great. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and remember, a man skilled in his work will stand before kings. So, whatever you do, do it well. People will notice.